So Tyson Fury did come out yesterday and said that the UFC has sent him an offer for a hybrid fight against Jon Jones. Now, as we know, this whole little feud started not too long ago. This is something that I could potentially see happening and was a very smart approach from the UFC. You know, if you offer Jon Jones a fight against Tyson Fury in an MMA bout, of course he's going to take that fight. And if you offer Tyson Fury a boxing match against Jon Jones, of course Tyson Fury is going to take that bout. Obviously, if Jon Jones is going to face Tyson Fury in a boxing match, Tyson Fury whoops him. And obviously, if Jon Jones faces Tyson Fury in an MMA bout, we all know that Jon Jones would win that contest. So the UFC sending Tyson Fury a hybrid fight contract against Jon Jones could be a way that we potentially do see a contest between these two play out. Now, as we know with the story behind this, on the Joe Rogan podcast, Joe Rogan came out and said that if Tyson Fury and Jon Jones were locked into a room with one another, that he would bet all of his money on Jon Jones walking out of that room and that Tyson Fury doesn't stand a chance. And this got on Tyson Fury's nerves a little bit, calling out Joe Rogan, and then Jon Jones went back and forth stating that, you know, I would absolutely whoop you. And then we got in a situation where Tyson Fury and Jon Jones were going back and forth with each other, and look, it was all a bit silly, to be honest. And it seemed after a little bit of back and forth that Tyson Fury sort of backtracked a little bit and said, look, I only box, I'm not interested in rolling around on the floor, you know, trying to save face a little bit. But I don't think anyone would dispute the fact that Tyson Fury wouldn't really stand a chance in an MMA bout. And I think Tyson Fury is smart enough to acknowledge that fact, because years ago he was wrestling around with Nick Diaz. I believe they trained together for a little bit, and Nick Diaz managed to get him on the ground, even though he's a much smaller man. So what we do know so far is that there is ongoing discussions between the UFC and Tyson Fury surrounding this fight or potential fight between him and Jon Jones. So the talks are ongoing, and the way that the UFC is looking to be structuring this deal, just from the outside looking in, looks like that it does have potential to actually take place. Time will actually tell if that is the case, but it is something that a lot of fans will pay for. And this is something that's happened before. We had Roateng in one championship face Demetrius Johnson, and they had, you know, one round of Muay Thai, one round of MMA. So I can potentially see something like this playing out if we were to see Tyson Fury taking on Jon Jones. And I think it is a smart decision from the UFC to approach Tyson Fury with a contract like this. But I did find it quite funny when Dana White came out and said only a few weeks ago that he doesn't do these gimmicky fights and that's not what we do here. And he was saying this in relation to the Francis Ngannou PFL deal that allowed him to pursue boxing at the same time. So again, Dana White, good old Dana, talking through both sides of his mouth. Love it. Absolutely love it. Good laugh. So Tyson Fury did come out and said he's been in talks with Francis Ngannou for a hybrid fight, and there's talk of him fighting Jon Jones for a hybrid fight as well. And he received an offer from the UFC yesterday, so you never know what's going to happen. The future's bright for sure, and there's lots of options out there. So at least we know that there's actual talks happening. When this was first mentioned and both fighters were going back and forth with one another, I didn't really want to comment on it because it did all seem a little bit ridiculous to me. I find the whole boxing versus MMA thing a little bit silly. Whenever an MMA guy goes over to boxing, he gets starched. And the only other boxer that has gone over to MMA was James Toney, and he got absolutely whooped by Randy Couture and taken down. So I always found these arguments a little bit silly. They're two completely different sports. But the deal looks like it's going to be actually more appealing for the fans. So now this is something that I can get behind, because if this is something similar to what we've seen between Demetrius Johnson and Roateng, it's going to be a more interesting, compelling fight, and it's going to promote more people to actually buy the pay-per-view, because that way, Tyson Fury and Jon Jones have a legitimate path to victory and both have a chance to win the contest. So I do think it's a very smart move by the UFC, regardless of, you know, Dana White talking through both sides of his mouth, which he always does. I still think this is a great offer, you know, so hopefully we can get something locked in. I don't think we've seen a boxer, you know, transfer over to UFC since James Toney in any way, shape or form. The only other one we've seen is Clarissa Shields in the PFL. And look, she did absolutely fantastic. I was very impressed by Clarissa Shields' MMA skills, because she is an actual world champion boxer, one of the greatest female boxers that there currently is right now, and she made the transition pretty well, you know? She recognized that there was holes in her game and that she needed to train for MMA specifically, and she got the right coaching, and she did put on a pretty good performance within the PFL. I don't think she's currently fighting, but she continues to work on that MMA experience, you know, her grappling, her takedown defense, and all these sorts of things. She can go far within the sport as well. You know, she's already extremely talented. So Tyson Fury versus Jon Jones, I think can actually happen now. That's why I thought we'd actually talk about it. Do you guys think this one is going to actually take place? What do you think the chances are of this? Do you think it's a 50-50 shot? Let me know in the comments of what you think of this contract. Are you guys interested within this fight or not? Or would you just prefer to leave the MMA guys and the boxing guys just separately and just leave it at that? Now, I do know a lot of you guys train mixed martial arts and some of you are looking to get into mixed martial arts as well. So that's why I made this free ebook called Combat Training Essentials, the Art of Nutrition and Injury Prevention. Now, guys, if you're in MMA or you're looking to get into MMA, it's not a sport that's going to be very kind to your body, okay? And as you age, the injuries will just pile up and pile up. So you need a system in place that's going to allow you to actually be on the mat for as long as possible. You need the right diet, you need the right sleep, you need the right stretching routine and conditioning program that's going to actually enable you to spend as much time on the mats as you possibly can. We're not talking about making you a professional athlete here. That's not what I'm saying. But if you do want to train in the sport that you love for as long as possible, in your 50s and in your 60s, you need to get this book. I've laid out some great stretching programs for you guys, how to structure your workouts and get the most out of your training with preventing injuries. Guys, you don't want to spend any time off the mat. Injuries can and do happen within mixed martial arts, and you want to prevent that as much as possible. So feel free to check that out in the description below. I believe you guys will get a lot out of this, so feel free to check it out and let me know what you guys think. But that's it for today. If you guys do like this sort of content, please feel free to hit subscribe, but only if you are interested in the latest MMA news. Thanks so much for tuning in, everyone, and I'll catch you all later.